So good afternoon, my name is Sanjay. Also Eid Mubarak to everyone who's celebrating. I direct the program on political economy here at Harvard Law School, and it is my great pleasure to introduce our final installment in a semester-long series, Supply Chain Capitalism, Legal Regimes, and Market Power. Before we get started, I just want to thank our co-sponsor, the Center for Labor and Just Economy, as well as our LPE program coordinator, Noah Lawson, for handling so many of the logistics for today. The goal of this series has been to understand this phenomenon of global supply chains or global value chains that is so central to organizing social relations in contemporary capitalism. And in particular, we've sought to focus on the law's role in ordering these relations, in structuring their embodied social and economic practices, and in identifying points of intervention to build legal power. We started off this semester with a truly magnificent discussion with Hila Shamir, whose work charts a trajectory to restructure labor law in labor institutions to counter the dominant power structures of global value chains. Then in Vivian Price's film, Talking Union, Talking Climate, we heard directly about the linked experiences of oil workers in the global north and global south to consider transnational flows of capital, infrastructures, and raw materials in the fossil fuel industry, and think about what a just transition might entail. And in our last session, we heard from Desiree Leclerc about the dynamics of worker-centered trade policy in the context of the International Labor Organization. If you missed any of these discussions, the recordings are available on the LPE HLS website and on the LPE Project YouTube channel. I think it's very fitting to conclude this series of conversations hearing from the labor activist and intellectual Chandan Kumar, who has done a tremendous amount of thinking and organizing and ground-up institution building, dealing with global supply chain from the vantage point of his home country of India and around the world. Chandan will be joined in conversation today by our very own Hila Shamir. They will lead us off before we open up the discussion, and as always, folks joining in on the live stream can chime in through Zoom using the Q&A feature. So Hila, please take it away.
Thank you, Sanjay. Can you guys hear me? Is this sufficiently loud?
Yeah.
So thank you for coming to our last installment of this series. And I'm really thrilled and honored to present to you my friend, my comrade, and inspiration, Chandan Kumar. Chandan is a labor rights activist based in Pune, India. He is a coordinator of the Working People's Charter Network, WPC, organizing research and advocacy network and advocacy and a network focused on the informal labor sector in more than 21 Indian states. He is a member of the National Minimum Wage Advisory Board and Apex Statutory Committee of the Government of India and the National Human Rights Commission Core Group on Forced Labor. He's been part of numerous labor policy and organizing campaigns of warehouse workers, construction workers, vegan platform economy workers, domestic workers, dock workers, transport workers, and others. This is not all. You'll hear more today, both at the provincial and the federal level in India. And he's also been associated with various global labor rights and social justice movements, really too many for me to count. And so I'm glad to be able to have this conversation with you today, Chandan, to kind of create a summary for us of thinking about global value chains from the labor side, from the trade side, looking at sustainability, and today thinking about the perspective from workers in the global south. So thank you for coming all the way. And just to start us off, you can just tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? Where did you come from? And what brought you into organizing and this kind of work?
Am I audible? Is it working?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's lovely to meet you, Hila, again. We have been working together in the last 4 years, 5 years, I believe that. And there's a lot of familiar faces like Sharon I met during my last trip, Sanjay, some of very close friends. So I'm based in a small city called Pune, which is kind of
small, very small.
Yeah, just like 8 million. Yeah, it's a small city as per the Indian standard. So it's a kind of satellite town of Mumbai, and it's kind of developed as a new kind of industrial kind of junction when the Bombay was kind of over flooded and overpacked in a way. So it's a kind of western part of India is a part of what you say that Delhi, Mumbai economic corridor, and it's linked to the port, India's biggest port called JNPT, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust in Mumbai. So it's basically provides and kind of feed into the massive economical need of what you call the India's economic growth. But fake India's economic growth, I would call it. I will talk about that. So yeah, so I've been an organizer and I've been trying to work on a very ambitious idea. You know that in India, we are a small country, 1.4 billion people, yeah, and from north to south, 6,000 kilometers. So we deal with a huge diversity and so on. I mean, there's a huge population, there's a huge workforce in the different parts, a very diverse set of economy and sectors. The whole effort is to basically bring together different worker segments, employed and engaging in the different diverse sectors of formal and informal economy. You know that how the workers' definitions of formal and informal, so decides on that. But yeah, reorganizing and formal economy both. And idea is to basically bring together large number of workers' organizations, grassroots organizations, who are not part of, I would say, that the political parties and so on. Because historically, the large number of trade unions in India have been part of or kind of made allegiance to certain political parties and segments. So the idea is very ambitious. When you have so much intersectionality, caste, class, gender, religion, workers, carry so many identities, and then bringing together is a very tough task. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, that's an ambitious political project. We are trying to do it. We have been very, very successful. We have also not been very successful. Small victories, big victories. We'll talk about that. But yeah, this is what I'm trying to do. And locally organizing, I'll talk about my union, what we are trying to do, what we have done so far. Marhari model, that's my and Hila's connections on that. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, so this is kind of very briefly what I'm trying to do.
So let me start with a question that haunts this field of thinking about supply chain and development. Within the work of global supply chain and development and sustainability, there is this constant debate about whether global supply chains are good or bad for the global south. Of course, this is very superficial to think about good or bad, but whenever there is an attempt to regulate global supply chains in terms of sustainability or workers' rights, there is a very traditional trope of saying, but wait, the global south is just developing now, why hamper development? Why create more challenges in bringing prosperity to this region of the world? And I'm wondering, as an organizer, as a workers' rights advocate in India, how do you see this debate and kind of the trade-offs of global supply chains?
I mean, it's not really new phenomenon. I would say that starting from the colonial era, that you want to have colonies where you want to manufacture, produce. You want certain environment where you don't need to follow law, you don't need to adhere any, regulatory framework and so on. So I think the whole South is very much part of the same neoliberal kind of capitalist system. And India is, of course, is one of the biggest country in the world. Of course, we have a huge problem of what we call the skilled workers, for sure. And because we have not been able to work and invest much on the technical education, what you call that you needed for industrial training and so on. And of course, our next neighbor, China, we definitely is going to or kind of aspiring to become a kind of competitor. We would like to take over China on manufacturing sectors and so on. But it's tough, it's very, very tough. I just give you a small example about the recently Foxconn is investing $45 billion. It's a huge investment, and I understand because of
this. Where?
In India, in Gujarat, which is a Western India, and that's Mr. Modi's home state. And I understand because of strained relationship between China and Vietnam. I know that Foxconn had a huge operation in China, and now because of this recent development and so on, now Foxconn is basically exploring the possibilities of that what are the other areas where they can invest. They can find enable environment where they do not have to follow due diligence, supply, the labor laws and so on. They don't need to bother about the trade unions right, right to association, collective bargaining and so on. So I think this is one example. I can say that India is definitely going to play a very important role as far as the new economic kind of new wave of industrialization, I would call it, just like last year. Amazon has basically built a biggest industrial corridor in Asia, the biggest one. And if you just go inside this industrial corridor, which is linked to the Bombay Port Trust, and I think you'll find at least 40,000 workers and dealing with such a massive, kind of economic activities and so on. So I think, in my opinion, that the current regime is definitely creating a space where big industries and big corporations can come and invest, and we are sort of giving them a free hand that you don't need to worry about human rights, you don't need to worry about the labor laws and so on. And this is going to be reality. So, in my opinion, the global south is this whole debate is definitely create a lot of opportunity for groups like us. We have a lot to do. We are organizing. We are doing a lot of things. We still have constitutional framework and the legal framework where we can fight it out. But looking at the current hostility of the government and the way the industrialization growth is happening, we see that there's going to be a lot of conflict and turmoil. And we are definitely going to play an important role, but on cost of labor, on the cost of blood and sweats of the large segment of informal workers, particularly if you see the whole demography and geography of India. Like, I come from the small state called Bihar, it's in eastern India, and you see that the whole migrant workers, traveling from the eastern side, going to the western side and southern side. You also see the whole concentration of industrial growth on western India and southern India, because labor market wants you to migrate. If you are in your local context, you will organize, you have local political power and so on. So this whole system basically wants you to get displaced, get dispossessed. There's a huge mining is happening, there's a massive level of kind of displacement is going to take place at this moment, because we want a huge army of cheap labor to fulfill the ambitious dream of making India as a big manufacturing and economic hub in the country.
So I hear you talking kind of both about the economic opportunity that is created, but at the same time the need to rein it in some way. And I don't know, maybe you can give us some examples and tell us about some of the supply chain organizing activism you've been involved with, and the challenges, the opportunities that you see in that kind of organizing in India.
Yeah, I'm just before starting this, I was just talking to Sharon about there's a big story in New York Times about sugarcane harvesting workers, and there's basically, I think this story has really created a massive spark. A lot of.
How many of you read that story?
Okay.
We have a few. You might need to give some background.
Okay, sure. We do have kind of some sectors where you have seasonal migrants, traveling from one place to another place, like thousands of kilometers.
But internal migrants.
Internal migrants, yeah. This is a very, I would say that very sad that we call our own citizen migrants. It's very, very sad that, but yeah, India is such a huge and diverse country that the moment you leave your linguistic boundaries, you are foreign. So if Bengali workers or Odia workers or people from Northeast and East, the moment they reach the small state called Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, all these big industrial states, they are foreigners. For me also, when I go to South India, the kind of language people speak for me is a Hebrew and Swahili. I just don't understand those languages. It's such a huge country. So think about the workers, coming far from, so far, and just being part of some places. You go and ask those workers, like, I don't know where I am. They don't even know the name of the place of their work. That kind of situation. So sugarcane is one of those sectors where people migrate from the tribal hamlets, what we call the indigenous region in Gujarat, in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh. There are a few pockets. We have done the mapping, like Alirajpur district in Madhya Pradesh, for example, or Sabarkantha district of Gujarat, like a great Gujarat of Mr. Modi's Gujarat, which is like a very industrialized Gujarat, but there is also a small region which is so poor. People have nothing. If people don't migrate, people will die. There are hunger deaths in 21st century. There's a situation. So I'm talking about those regions and those areas where people migrate and they come to the states like Maharashtra, which is another big industrialized states, but some parts of Maharashtra, not like a whole Maharashtra. Bombay and Pune is not a real Maharashtra. If you go to Marathwada, the other regions are so poor. So these people migrate to do the harvesting of sugar. And sugar is part of the big kind of supply chain economy. You can say Coca-Cola, Pepsi, like big beverages giants basically, import from that. Starbucks also like the big companies, and I also approached by the Starbucks Union Unite here from the US that can we do something. So this story actually has given a lot of connection. A lot of people approached us that can we do something about that. So there are basically rough population. I would say that at least 3 to 4 million people migrate with their children, the families, and if you go there, and it's all covered in the story, Sham. And small children between the age group of 4 to 5 and 6, not a single children had a basic, I would say that childcare. Women have no access, even the basic reproductive rights, what do you call that? Forget about the wages. Wages is like a distant dream. All are bonded laborers, right? They all are migrating because they have taken certain kind of advance debt, right? And then lieu of debt, people are migrating. And it's also the caste question, because all of them are Dalits and tribals, you know that. And you have taken the money, you have the labor contractors work like labor traffickers, and they push you to migrate. So they're migrating to another state, which is like almost 800 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers, and working as a bonded labor. So that's a kind of story I'm talking about that.
But what about the supply chain organizing?
Yeah, so this is the basic situation. So our role is basically that we are building a union in that part. We have not been able to make I would say that much connections as far as this, but we are exploring the possibilities if we can file some cases using the new executive order issued by the White House that
File in the US?
filing in the US, exactly. And also some more areas. We are also exploring if we can file something in Germany using the supply chain due diligence bill, because all these companies are also registered there. So we are also exploring whether the new European framework on supply chain human rights due diligence can help us, or American legal framework. I know there's a lot of limitation in that, but still we would like to explore it. So we are creating evidence, we are creating data. So this story is very much part of that initiative. So I'm now the investigative journalist who did the story. She's doing a follow-up story because we now filed a lawsuit in the Bombay High Court, and Chief Justice is, himself is looking this matter, kind of monitoring it and so on. So in my opinion, I feel that there's a very, very minuscule space for people like us. We are organizing, but I know that the hostility of the government and the whole caste, class, migration, the whole relationship, I think if there will be some push from the global north, powerful country, like a US or Germany, if you can push some agenda, and then there will be something. At least, I'm not saying that there will be a big change and big revolution in a very lighter sense, but at least the basic childcare support system or basic healthcare support system, at least some sort of mechanism where they can be, given statutory minimum wages, because at this moment the relationship with the labor market is bonded labor, forced labor. So I think I'm expecting at least some advancement on that. Similarly, another case we are working on Amazon. And Amazon, I'll talk about more, but Amazon again, the same situation. I'm aware about how Amazon is, organizing. There's a big moment in the US where the Amazon Union and some good union formations happening. But in our part of the world, I think there's a massive fragmentation. You don't even understand that how many subcontractors, who's dealing what. And that's a basic, I think, nomenclature of India's labor market, that you fragment, you informalize, right? You create a many kind of, subsection within the whole, economic activities. It's so difficult to catch one person. If you catch one person, it's like, I'm not responsible for that. So I think this is a big challenge, and I feel that supply chain kind of methodology can bring some sort of, help, support system where these companies can come and talk to us, at least to the unions, and have some sort of preliminary level of bargaining, which is not the case at this moment. Yeah.
Do you have an example of so this is a very preliminary stage for this fight. Do you have an example of a more developed strategy that you devised with others, with unions on the ground devised, to use the power of lead firms in the global north to improve the working conditions of workers?
We have been discussing about it, and there's some successes, I would say that, because we connected with the Amazon unions here in the US, in Germany, in France, in Poland. I think, in my opinion, one way is using human rights due diligence legal framework.
European human rights.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, yeah. So that's one of the way to do things. But I personally feel as an organizer that we need to do some kind of global south and global north union collaboration, in my opinion. So we need to really build our capacity. I mean, at this moment, we hold some strike. We did a lot of the legal advancement in terms of filing and lodging industrial dispute against Amazon, or for example, General Motors. So UAW is helping us a little bit on that part. So we are in touch with large number of trade unions in global north, including North America, Europe, and so on. And I strongly feel that launching a case using European framework like a German supply chain, or maybe using the executive order of White House, which talks very clearly about promoting democracy and trade rights. But beyond that, I would say that there's a need for larger solidarity and larger collaborative action between the American trade unions and the Indian trade unions. And I mean, India has not signed and ratified 87 and 92, which is association and collective bargaining, but still we have very unique features in the constitution. What we say that fundamental rights, that the right to association, collective bargaining are fundamental rights. So nobody can stop us. For example, gig economy and platform workers. We don't have laws, we don't have policies. I mean, across the whole world is dealing with that, but still we have a certain constitutional framework where we can file the industrial dispute. And we actually did that. We file dispute against Uber. We file dispute against General Motors, basically. So we are doing that whatever our local law of the land permits and gives us some sort of leeway. But if you really want to basically get some big win, big victories, I think global north and global south unions have to work more closely. When we call a strike, then we need to really, I would say that impacting Amazon, the economic operation, impacting on Coca-Cola, operation. So this can be only done when we have a more collaborative and more solidarity-based kind of democratic resistance. This is what I personally believe. I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but it's difficult. I know it's very, very difficult. The world is very, very big. People don't know what's happening in South. South people don't understand what's happening in North. But I think we have to do it. If we really want to challenge capitalism, really want to bring these people on the bargaining table, then we have to do some innovative action. Yeah.
Well, so let me ask a follow-up to that. Then I want to actually hear more about from the Gaudi model, which I know both of you have quite a lot of. Is you say that what the engaging with the legal system, engaging with constitutional challenges, is not transformative, but it gives you leeway.
Yeah.
Leeway to do what?
Leeway to advance organizing, leeway to advance our legal activism, leeway to basically, think about some new legislative measures and framework, because most of our labor laws are not equipped to, address the current economic challenges or current labor market challenges. So we need to also think about the new legislative thinking and framework. We need more champions at the parliament level, right? Otherwise, there's nothing happening, right? So I think leeway means that we need a new sort of thinking in terms of, on every level. I don't know.
But I'm saying, how does a victory in, say, a particular court case give you the breathing space to do those things? Is an example of a particular sort of legal action that in and of itself didn't necessarily transform conditions on the ground, but that enabled conditions for the kind of organizing that goes on?
Open space or creative.
Yeah. So I can give you one example. Like we have a very famous case law from the Supreme Court, and some of the case laws are very important and very effective. So we have a case law which says that if you're not paying someone minimum wages, it's amount to slavery, right? So we have used such jurisprudence and case laws to challenge the current situation too. So for example, we just filed a dispute against Amazon. And it's like that. If you go by the Amazon operations, and majority people like gig workers, small gig workers, or the warehousing workers are not not paid even the basic wages and so on. And therefore Amazon is promoting slavery like that. So these are kind of, we have some certain examples where we can say that we can use a legal framework to do that. But on the other side, we are also discussing the new labor laws framework. So one of the labor framework what we are discussing about how to bring these platform companies or platform where they recognize these workers as workers. So far they are not, and we file a new public interest litigation Supreme Court, and the hearing has not started because of a lot of other issues. But yeah, this is what we are trying to argue and build a case that you cannot say that company and the big investment is coming and they're creating employment and so on. I mean, it's a similar argument in the US too, I believe that, right? That if you push more and they will leave, and these companies, but look at this company, there's so much unemployment, there's so many young people who don't have jobs and so on, but it cannot be done on the cost of labor. You have to follow the rule of the law, you have to adhere to the basic constitutional guarantees.
So you see it ending up, just to sum up this before we move to the level, as using international power to pressure local either politicians or suppliers in the supply chain to improve workers' rights. So hands up, if we're thinking about it from the local level to the international level, you're thinking of kind of pulling a lever of power in order to change domestic law in India and working or collective bargaining agreement or like changing that situation. So you imagine going back to the domestic as a key, the domestic Indian political system, domestic Indian industrial relations system as the ultimate goal of this, even if you're pulling levers at the international level? Is that what
I think it's a very complex debate. I mean, if you see many parts of South Asia or many parts of Southeast Asia, I can't talk about Europe and America, that is not my area, but South Asia and Southeast Asia, we still have majority of people, like over 50% people is still living in poverty. People don't have social protection rights, people don't have the basic dignified housing. No, I mean, we have our own huge problem, right? So this whole debate is also linked with this, the question of nationalism, right? People like me might be behind the bar after the election. It's very likely that I'm sort of going to BAFA. BAFA is a mechanism in German supply chain capitalism law. So if I'm filing a case at BAFA or taking your help to complain to the White House or US consulate and so on. So Chandan is against India's economic growth story. Chandan is against basically that he's blocking our great Prime Minister to bring investment. There's a big story now, I'll be happy to send you, about the Foxconn factory, where 98% are young women, Dalit women, right? And if you see their condition, the iPhone factory is absolutely the forced labor. There's no doubt about that. You can't even leave the factory, right? Within the factory premises, there's a small, kind of pigeons kind of space, like a hostel. There's no space for that. You can't even utter a word on the factory floor. There's a massive cases of sexual harassment at the Foxconn, the Apple iPhone factory. So I would say that we need to be also very strategic in a way. Otherwise, we won't be able to do a lot of things. I mean, already so many of our comrades and friends are in jail for a very small thing. You go and tell the employer that come on the bargaining table, and there is a criminal case against you under the laws called the colonial law called extortion. I do have 3-4 criminal cases. I mean, and I did nothing. I just asked the employer to come on the bargaining table. So there are law enforcement agencies basically applies the local laws and those kind of things to basically put you down. So in my opinion, there's one way is definitely using the supply chain framework to address the matter. Is also that we all are together. We are in the space of G20. We are in the space of BRICS, and so on. We need to promote labor rights and etc. But at the same time, we have to also revisit our local laws. And if the laws are not competent enough or not strong enough, we need to think about the new framework. But this is a very complex space: nationalism, economic growth, unemployment, the local productions, everything, and then you're talking about the labor rights. So I don't know if it's making sense to you, but it's a very, it's not a very simple, it's not like black and white debate. It's a very, there are different shades of gray. And our strategy so far has been good, I would say that, but still we need more teeth, more support system. I want Mr. Modi and Mr. Biden to talk about labor rights and democracy, not only the other stuff. I'm just saying on that sense, because in G20 there was some discussion about gig economy and platform economy when India hosted recently G20. So of course India wants to do something in gig and platform economy. So Amazon is very much part of it, but I don't know how much they can push it. That's my worry on that.
So, being conscious of time, I want us to move to the Mathadi model.
Sure.
So, Chandan and I have met when he introduced me to this very, very inspiring union he has been working with that represents head loaders, informal workers that are doing loading and unloading work in Pune. And we have been working on studying that union for the past 5 years and their structure. So, and the reason this union is so interesting is because it really creates a very unique way of kind of formalizing informal work and empowering workers in a way that exceeds how labor and employment law is usually conceived in this dyadic and very limited structure of looking at who's an employee and then applying labor law to that. I was wondering if you will be willing to share with us, some background about the Hamal Panchayat and the Mathadi model. And then, again, being conscious that I'm just going to take another question in, and then if you can also tell us a little bit about how it's being expanded to gig work in India at the moment.
I think it's an exciting time in a way that some of the old conventional framework, what you say, the Mathadi, is being used and is also inspiring to develop the new legal formations. For example, being in platform economy. I'll give you one example about that. But very quickly, my union is very old. It's five decades old union. Come from very historical perspective of port economy, the port workers, and so on. And this law came around 1969, and for the first time in India, when any legislation we're talking about formalizing informal workers, right? And that's a Mathadi model work. So Hamal Panchayat has been pioneer. My union is bringing the legislation and also to pushing this law so that this can address the larger problem of informal economy. Historically, it's been part of the warehousing workers, logistics, supply chain. I can't believe that our union people didn't even realize that all the traditional housing literally taken over by the Amazon. So the conventional and the traditional warehousing workers become the Amazon workers. So that's the kind of shift of economy, I would call it like that. So Mathadi model is very simple. That I know it has also some criticism about that. But yeah, one thing is that when we fight neoliberalism or when we challenge capitalism, some of the fight we have to really let go for some time, like kind of pause it. Contract labor system is a reality. We can't change it. We can't say that 500 million people needs to be regularized and make it permanent. On similar line, that a lot of movement, especially coming from the global north, working on trafficking, and say that bonded labor are slaves. Let's release 400 million people from the slavery. Can you rescue 400 million people and send it to somewhere, like where, which part? So I would say that Mathadi model is one of those laws which say that, okay, fine, contract labor is a reality.
Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, I'm coming on that, so give me the background as that. It's very simple that it regularizes workers and employment conditions. There's a tripartite welfare board system where the workers, employers, and the state is basically part of it. And if I work for multiple employers, but still I have a system where my employment can be secured, my employment relations can be regulated, my wages can be regulated, because state is taking guarantee as a principal employer. That's the first features about that. So for example, if I work for you, so if my wage is, let's say that $100, but you in informal employment, largely in India, you directly give me money because I'm a worker, but you're not giving me money, you're depositing my wages along with social security to the tripartite welfare board, and the board is managing that fund, my wages and my social security board. So that's a uniqueness of Mathadi model. And Mathadi model also ensures basically, even though I work for multiple employers, I work for the different employers at the same time, but because of this tripartite board, because board has taken my responsibility as a principal employer, board is basically guaranteeing also my union rights, association, also my collective bargaining. The board is ensuring that if the contract has to change, then board will bring the employer, workers all together to talk about the renewal of contract and so on. So board has taken a unique responsibilities to addressing basic labor rights, which is very, very unknown and totally unbelievable in the informal economy of India. So I think that's the model is a game changer. And this model has inspiring many labor laws. For example, we started discussing domestic workers in 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And we gave the framework that even for the domestic workers, can we think about Mathadi model? We also talked about sugarcane harvesting workers. So we thought about, can we propose a Mathadi model? But of course, there's a lot of hostility. The employers do not want, because they have to pay wages, they have to also ensure the labor right, they have to also give social security levy and so on, etc. So of course it's difficult, because until you don't have political organizing, until you don't have pressure from the ground, it's difficult to bargain with this big employer. So I will say that not much success on that front, but gig workers, it worked out very well. In Rajasthan, there's a first state in India who has passed the first legislation for gig workers recently, just like I think 6 to 8 months ago, and now many states are doing that. So it's a very simple that gig workers also have the same situation that I work for Uber, I work for different companies. I mean, one worker working for the different platform companies and so on. But if all these companies can be part of the Mathadi system, then my wages and those things can be regulated. So I don't know if I'm able to explain, but yeah, it's a complex structure to talk about Mathadi in that manner, I would say. Yeah.
I think an interesting element here is that the platform economy really works like the traditional informal economy. And so a model that has been developed for the traditional informal economy in the Indian context, which means that one labor provider, which is a formal worker, works for multiple employers and just gets paid directly, has been regularized through centralizing in a board structure that is tripartite, right? So imagine, it's easier for us to think about it in the Uber context, where the platform allegedly all it does is connects drivers to various people who need a ride, right? And so the platform centralizes that in some sense. Of course, the platform has no representation of workers. It works only to extract value. And so but that structure is what the board, the welfare board and worker board does in the Mathadi context, but it has worker representation and it has state backing to enforce the negotiated agreement between labor users and labor providers. And so in some ways, this model lends itself very easily to the regulation of gig work. The problem is, for many activists in the global north looking at it, is that it doesn't mean that the labor providers are designated as employees. Labor providers remain informal workers. They remain, it's partial formalization. It's not full formalization. They're not employees. They're not employees under traditional labor and employment laws do not apply to them. But a new structure of negotiation and bargaining is created, and this is so the Mathadi model created this, and it's in the twists and turns of the growth of capital and neoliberalism and the platform economy. Suddenly, this model becomes appropriate to the new informal labor. Again, with a distinction between what's happening in the global north and global south. So, what has been happening in India? Several states took up the Mathadi model and said, let's apply it to gig work. So it's very easy to know, through the platform economy, how much the worker is paid and how much they should be paid. So we take the information the platform has and we centralize it in a way that workers are represented in a board. Okay, so that's what's happening there. activists in the global north have been concerned that this is not taking a sufficient, this is a corporate, a way corporations can buy the workers by not providing them all the rights. Where do you find yourself in that?
I mean, small distinction is that even during time when Mathari law was enacted, that in a way, employer is basically kind of sharing the responsibility, right? That once you paid the wages or the levy to the board, then our board is going to take all the headache. But they talk about social insurance or social security or wages. I mean, if workers even die or meet with any accident at the work site, it's a board will take care of that. That is not my responsibility. That's why one of the reasons that why it become very successful that once you paid your wages or your levy and etc., now the state will take care of everything, right? Similar situation in the gig economy. The arguments basically that no, they are our partners. We are technology platform. We are aggregators. We have nothing to do with the workers. Despite that, the company is asking you to be on live, right? On app. They'll give you a rating and this system. They will block you. They will misclassify you, etc., etc. But on this question, at least they said, okay, Mathari model. Okay, what we have to do? We have to just kind of give a small levy deduction on each transaction. So if you go from here to basically Boston Airport, if the total price is $30, and then I have to just pay like a 2% levy, and that goes to the board. That is all I can do that. So on this question, I mean, we are dealing and we are kind of bargaining on employment regulations, which every company is so hostile. Same kind of threat that if you will push us more, we'll leave, right? And then the government is saying, what are you doing? I mean, come on, we don't have employment. We need these companies to create employment. Where the young people will go, etc., etc. All this argument is there, but at least they come on the bargaining table, at least for this basic thing, the social security, right? So I think, in my opinion, Mathari model has given us some sort of advantage to bring these companies, because if you will ask me like 1 year ago, who's gig worker? There's no legal definition for gig workers. But at least now we have one law which recognizes who are the gig workers. How can we define gig workers? So thanks to Mathari law for that, and thanks to Hila, because Hila helped us. Hila and Shali, the two our comrades, help us to, because we are organizing, we don't know all this legal articulation. Is also for us is a big challenge. So I learned a lot of things, thanks Hila, to helping us to articulate these things, that how we kind of articulate is our organizing experience, our bargaining experience in the legal terminologies, and also kind of the language of political economy and so on. So I think we have been successful on that part. And now after Rajasthan, of course, it's a mess, because we have a federal democracy. Each state has their own government. I think also very much like a US. That different Democrats or Republicans. So similarly, when this law came, it was a Congress party. Now the BJP is in the power of Rajasthan, and they're not interested. So we have a law, but the rules are yet to be framed, which means that these are not enforced. Now the Karnataka is our very own Silicon Valley of India. All the Microsoft, to you name it, all the companies. Now Karnataka, I sent you the draft bill. So we are now For activists like us, is also so challenging. How many laws, how many policies we will frame it, and you rally behind, you run behind bringing new policies, new laws, government changes, and everything falls flat. So workers also, so tired that no, honestly, I mean, what to trust and where to trust, and what to do. That okay, again you will talk about new laws and new policies, but for us, my life is like on hanging. I mean. Look at all these big companies who are after these Uber drivers. Still the COVID impact is still not got over, The mafia is coming to your home, and it's like they will take your car, it's a mess situation. Workers have nothing to hold on that. And we are also sometimes, I feel, very cynical in a way that we are still holding to the policy and legislation that this law will get something to. I'm just saying, I'm sorry about that, yeah. There's like critical reflections of also our own organization.
I'm gonna flip that back, and we will on the optimism, I promise, but I do want to take to open up the questions in the room or Susan.
So we talked about the complexity.
Can we introduce ourselves too? Yeah.
Introduce myself. I'm Hila. I'm an LLM student here. You talked about the complexity in adopting legislation domestically in the global south. I'm wondering, what do you think about the complexities of adopting legislation in the global north, and what do you think should be the ideal legislation in order to regulate the behavior of the elite firms?
I mean, we live in a world where there has to be certain, I think people here, some more people, I think Sharon can correct me. We do have global international human rights framework, we have ILO conventions and so on. So there is a basically international standard. The kind of law you legislate or make in America or UK, I think Global South also has the same right to have a similar laws on same principles and so on. So one of the things which I wanted to say that, supply chain doesn't mean that only filing the cases, in the global north is also about that whatever framework we have in Germany or in the US, similar framework should be also adopted in the global south, like a country like India. So in my opinion that there has to be international standard, and this is how I think the big corporations and companies are floating and kind of undermining legal system because they feel that they have a system to follow in the global north, but when they go to global south, they can do anything, they can exploit workers and so on. So in my opinion that we do have standards, and that standards it's not like come in a day or something. It's gone through a different processes. It's gone through a different discussion. People, movements, unions have spent years and years in pushing this agenda. So those things need to be adhered in more, democratic manner, in my opinion. And whatever laws you basically legislate in the global north, same should have implication in the global south too. So these companies should be told by the government that, even though you go and do the business in the global south, but our human rights standard and our labor laws should be also, adhere in a similar manner. Whether law of the land says that okay, in India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, they do not have adequate laws, but what is our standard? This is our company, right? If you're going somewhere with the General Motors brand, something is also bringing the American name. So a government in America should be also saying that, you're carrying our brand, our country's brand, so you should not be, you know what I'm saying? Just saying, maybe it's a very idealistic position, but I think that we need to, think more innovatively in a manner. And unions should also push the government here in the global north for the similar demand.
Hello, my name's Catherine. I'm a 1L. I had a question because earlier you mentioned this idea of like North-South collaboration between unions, but I feel like sometimes it comes up in like the justification for promoting South-South collaboration instead. The idea of these relationships can devolve into something extremely paternalistic or like almost neo-colonial. I think it was well exemplified by your conversation about the Matadi model, that like while it works and has a place for gig workers in India, it's raising concerns for American unions because of their definition of like what a win is in that situation. So how have you found those collaborations, and what would you advise American unions who want to engage in that type of work to, be aware of to make sure that the relationship doesn't devolve into something like that?
Yeah. I think I'll give you one example. New York City is discussing a new law called Deactivation Act. So Biju Matthew, if you know that, New York Taxi Workers Alliance and those people. And we are learning, when we spoke to New York Taxi Workers Alliance and also the IATW, International Alliance for Air-Based Transport Workers, which Biju and his comrades are trying to build, we talked about Mathari law, and Biju said that I think it's a good idea. We can actually think about including Mathari model in some of the legislation which we are trying to experiment in the US. I don't know the current situation, but in my opinion that learning can come from anywhere because India's democracy is 75 years old, but our constitutional father, Mr. Ambedkar, has thought. He has given, I think, a very, very robust and very comprehensive framework. So one thing is definitely that there has to be space for more exchange, ideas and knowledge. That what experimented in the global south, sometimes it can also work very well in the global north. And of course, global north has a better human rights system and so on. That can be also used here. So one way is about sharing knowledge and sharing experience and so on. And second thing, I want to reiterate that our experience is about more collaborative work, in my opinion. So far, I mean, we are living in so aloof and so lost world that we feel that we have nothing to do with the global north. I mean, this is I'm trying. I mean, because of course, a lot of motivation coming from people, friends like Hila and other people, that we need to also create these kind of new knowledge among unions. There's a lack of education about what's happening in the global north, how the supply chain functions, how capitalism functions, how the new wave of industrial capitalism which is emerging and how workers should be more careful. For example, venture capitalism, right? You just list down the 10 families and you will find out that the whole gig economy and platform economy is the same people, the same family, like a soft bank, the Japanese soft bank. They have an investment in small companies like Ola. Ola is a big competitor of Uber in India. And same companies investing in Didi or DoDash in the US or in Latin America. So I think these are kind of new knowledge which union do not have, at least in my part of the world, in my opinion. So we need to also create a new kind of course curriculum. Political education is a key at this moment because there's a lack of knowledge. Nobody understands these things, the role of venture capital, the role of the new framework of new wave of industrial capitalism. So I think as a union organizer, we need to invest a lot of our time and a lot of our, basically thinking, time. We need resources for that. We don't have much resources for that, that. But these are kind of the game changer. If you really want to revive trade union activism and bring this such a shark and giant capitalist system on the bargaining or some kind of negotiation. Making sense? Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Nicole Chisarova, and I'm a visitor here. I'm a assistant professor of international law in the Netherlands and Leiden University, and I work on international and social justice. So your talk has been giving great food for thought and a lot of riveting insights. Thank you so much for that. There are so many locuses of power and so many fractures in the organizing. It's hard to pick what to ask about. One thing I was wondering, especially now in regard to the last question, you mentioned troubles in organizing on sort of the grassroots level as well among the workers. To what extent do you see a possibility in organizing on the intergovernmental level? Because you mentioned that one of the ways in which the Indian government's hands are tied is this threat from the corporations that they will pick another market in the global south to do investments. And to what extent is there a space and a possibility for regional intergovernmental organizing to sort of make agreements between markets that are similarly placed to sort of make some common rules or common responses to the pressure from the global capitals?
You mean like, let's say that South Asia?
Let's ASEAN, for example. To what extent would that,
ASEAN,
as a group, for
yeah.
example, be able to make some common response or make some common rules as a political union, which they are?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very important question, and we have been discussing about it. We actually
From the union side.
from the government side, yeah, exactly. So one of the discussion, I would like to flag this question that because, for example, let's take a palm oil, and India has become the biggest palm oil importer in our region, and Malaysia and Indonesia are the biggest exporter. So if you say that Malaysia 60% palm oil exported to India now at this moment. So, but there's no connection, there's no discussion among Malaysian government or Indian government or Malaysian or Indian unions and so on. So when we talk about global south and global north or economic south or economic north, we also have to talk about some kind of regional cooperation. So I agree with you. So there are certain things that are happening between workers' movement. But as far as government is concerned, I think ASEAN has done fairly well because I have been to ASEAN Forum, particularly on the social protection access and so on. They're doing very well, in my opinion. But South Asia, that role of India has always been like a big brother. We have such a hostile relationship with Pakistan. Now we have a lot of tension with Bangladesh because Bangladesh is taking over India on garment industry. Bangladesh is actually doing better, in my opinion. We also have a lot of tension with the Maldives now because Maldives, and of course there's some kind of different kind of geopolitical situations. So for example, Chinese influence in Maldives and India and Maldives has been historically a great relationship. But now since a new government in Maldives and the China and Maldives and Chinese investment in Maldives is definitely creating a lot of rift. Similarly on Nepal, I mean, if you remember that the Communist Party, the Maoist Communist Party in Nepal, and they have shared a good relationship with China. So as a regional blocks, in my opinion, that there will be issues of equilibrium because of the power, because of money, because of geopolitical tension, and so on. But as far as the union conversation is concerned, I mean, we are helping Nepalese, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, also folks in Pakistan, and like, we should do something. Like a Mathari model has sold very well in Pakistan. They just drafted a new law in Islamabad, and they use the Mathari model for the gig workers law. So among unions is going very well. We have a good solidarity. But government, I would say that, I don't know. I mean, I think there are also some kind of holding an interest by the capitalist system, like big companies who are kind of not allowing this government to talk and so on. Some blocks maybe at the EU level is going very well, Asian level is going well. East Asia, of course, China and Korea has a good trade relationship. But I don't see in my part is going to happen in the future. We had a SARC system. It was very good still. We have a good secretariat. You go to Kathmandu, they'll serve you coffee and food, etc. But as a SARC, if we go to talk something else, it doesn't work. Yeah.
So I'll close out both this talk and actually the whole series of questions for both of you.
Yeah.
And because we're talking about, and I want to focus on this question of kind of the links of solidarity between global North labor and global South labor. So you posed it as idealistic, possibly, but it's actually, I mean, it's very concrete. This is work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that throughout the semester has been very, I think, striking for many of us is just how, on one hand, fragmented labor solidarity is, both certainly between nation states, but also within nation states. And then how well organized transnational capital is at the same time. And so you mentioned these things that are relatively high level abstraction: political education, knowledge sharing, leveraging the position of global North unions to push their governments for certain kinds of labor enforcement in the South. But you're actually doing this work. I mean, you are involved in efforts to establish a network of solidarity between global South and global North. So what does that institution begin look like concretely? So what have been the challenges? And then Hila, I'd like you to chime in as well. Is actually what is the role of not only law in all of this, but lawyers?
See, there are some mechanisms available. For example, lawyers. There's a network of ILAW. I'm not sure if you heard about it. International Labor Lawyers Workers Association, ILAW. Jeff. So there are.
Just say Jeff.
Yeah. If you don't know Jeff is a very renowned, he's trying to build a big labor lawyers community around the world. So I'm also part of ILAW network. So there are certain mechanisms available. Again, with the global trade unions like Industrial, UNI, BWI, these are the big global trade union formations and so on. The problem at this moment is that any kind of, I'm not saying we need a big money like millions and billions of dollars. There is basically, I would say that some sort of stagnation in the manner the global trade union is functioning in a way. So I'm little kind of critiquing about that there is a mechanism, and ITOC and all the big trade unions which are based in Geneva and London and Brussels and so on, they do have this mechanism, but they've still been working in a very kind of conventional framework or conventional kind of in methods. They do have constituents on the ground who represents organized sector workers or kind of highly organized forms of workers and so on. So there's a one way. So definitely we can talk to them, we can sort of motivate them and kind of encourage them to expand their base, open their gates, bring more grassroots movement and so on. There's a one way to doing it, which I'm really up. But at the same time, I'm someone who's very interested to do something in a new kind of organizing. And how can we create a new kind of robust coalition of the workers' organizations. It's not only about creating a new federation, because I am up for the working class unity. I believe in that. So we don't need to create a new federation, new union, but there has to be some sort of grassroots trade unions, kind of campaign sort of solidarity that, we do something about that. For example, I was talking about this examples of General Motors, and I will not name the group, but I took like 2 months to reach out to the grassroots unions working in America, because I had to go through the Geneva route and then to London route and so on, like that. And till that time, unions had huge issues. They fizzle out, they fizzle out, and those things. But I feel that if there is a direct connection with the grassroots unions, we could have done much better. So this is another ambitious project, in my opinion. We need small resources. We need a new kind of framework, the campaign ideas, and so on. But if we target few sectors to begin with, I'm not saying like 1,000 union and so on. I would say that pick up warehousing, logistic port, basically, because that's the area where you have a large number of trade or economic activities are happening. So warehousing union and logistic union in the US, few unions in Europe, few unions in global south, and like 10 unions coming, I think we can create a lot of impact. So I'm saying I don't have big ambition at this moment, but if we pick up a few sectors, build some of the critical grassroots organizations which we have mapped, we have sort of shortlisted, we have done the preliminary level of mapping, we are good to go, in my opinion. But to going on the next level, we need some resources, and I feel that this is my personal opinion. We don't want NGOs funding, and we don't want foundation funding. I feel I was talking to some people, and it's again again a very kind of ambitious idea is that how Global North unions who have a sizable membership funding, if they can support the grassroots unions in the Global South, then there will be some advancement. Because when you get the foundation money, this I've been talking about that. There's a lot of conditions. You do this and you do that, etc. But Global North unions, if they can directly support it, because it impacts, because if the business is going from here, it will create a huge blow to our workers too. Our workers is going to lose the job. But if you have a same sort of rights and system in the Global North and Global South, then the companies will also, maintain the same status quo and so on like that. So in my opinion, if Global South Union have to really strengthen and have to be really kind of, to come on the arena where they can fight it out very aggressively, it has to be solidarity in all terms, campaign, resources, everything. Solidarity have to be extended to the Global North. And then it can be, I would say that the rainbow coalition of the grassroots workers' organizations to advance some of the work, which we have not been able to succeed so far.
Yeah, I think it's only fitting to give you the last word.
Thank you. So we don't have a long time, and this is the question we've been struggling with here. So I'll just say quickly that I think there is a real challenge of creating solidarity between unions because of law.
Yeah.
So law has actually been an impediment. I've been recently studying the Make Amazon Pay campaign, and that's actually one of the most transnational solidaristic campaigns that is doing work in the Global North and the Global South, kind of using, when the idea of kind of workers of the world unite was kind of impossible when Marx said it, but now we have the language, we are part of the same material supply chain. There is actually an opening that possibly wasn't there before. So it's, and we can conceive of choke points in the supply chains that can have immense structural power, resources, and yet the diversity of labor laws makes this really complicated. So from interviewing Make Amazon Pay coalition members in different locations, both in India, in the UK, in Poland, and from Uniglobal and Progressive International, what the kind of international union, Uniglobal is the international union, is really working with kind of still very much basing their campaign on consumers. Well, the local unions are really thinking about the institutional power resources. And so we have kind of societal power resources versus the institutional power resources, and there's a disconnect there, and I think the next stage will have to be moving to some sort of reinvention of law
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
ways that should be pushed by a global and a local movement. And it's very, very, of course, ambitious. But I think until we have that, there's just a lot of strategizing to do around local laws and not with local laws.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone, please join me in.
I have a small point to make. I mean, what we are trying to do in our part, I invite any of you, if any of you is interested to come and see some of our work, because we also have an appetite to, create organic intellectuals where the workers, even they don't know the legal language, but they know the real articulation, that what kind of law they make. So maybe the LPE or Harvard Law, if any of you want to come, to our part of the world, just to understand how we are sort of arguing, brainstorming and deliberating about creating a new piece of legislation, new legislative framework, and come and help us, or can, be part of our journey and, learn with each other. Please come. I invite all of you. Please. Yeah.